Every 2 minutes, someone is sexually violated in the United States. Out of every 6 women, 1 has experienced an attempted rape or complete rape. Rape, we're told, is not about sex, it's about power. That power reveals itself through force that is visibly apparent and physical. But that same power, that same force, can also be unseen, coercive, and psychological. The story about this invisible power is a story we don't expect to hear.
In this insider-exclusive Justice in America Network TV special, our news team visits with Carmen Durso and his client, Rosanne Sliney, to go behind the headlines to see how he not only successfully represented Roseanne to get justice after being sexually victimized by her own uncle, Dominic Previte, from the age of 5 years to 14 years, but also became her moral, legal inspiration and mentor to change the Massachusetts civil statute of limitation to pursue child molesters, as well as to witness firsthand Roseanne's transition to fearsome advocate for all victims of child abuse. Working to shatter the silence and prevent sexual violence through social advocacy, education, and survivor support. Roseanne's inspiring charisma, passion, and energy are coupled with her dedication to shattering the silence of sexual assault and giving a powerful voice to victims and their families. Audiences across the country have benefited from her experiences and her ability to turn tragedy into triumph. She is here today because she continues to inspire others to learn that every test in our life makes us bitter or better. Every problem comes to break us or make us. The choice is ours, whether we become victim or victor. And here's Rosanne Sliney now.
Sometimes we meet our destiny on the road we sought to avoid it. That hit me now as an advocate and fighting for justice for other people, to finally find my voice and being a participant in changing the law. It's something that is totally opposite from what I was taught as a child. I grew up in a house where my father was an alcoholic. There were family businesses on my mother's side. My father was treated with open hostility. When I was being abused as a child, my uncle started out with basically the grooming process. Like, he'd invite me over and would play exposing games. And I thought it was silly because I was only 5. And then through the years, it got more advanced. It happened at the Woburn Showcase Theaters, where he exchanged car wash tickets for private viewing at a movie theater. And it'd take me to movies like The Hills Have Eyes, which is about cannibalism. And I'd be 9, horrified, and the abuse would happen there. It happened at work. I'd go to his office and he would teach me how to count money, use machines, but I'd be sitting on his lap. When I left him and he dropped me off at home, I never had full understanding of what happened to me, is because there was the quiet abuse, which was behind closed doors, the secret, and then there was overt abuse at home. When I finally decided to come forward, I realized there was a statute of limitations. My time had expired and I wasn't able to move forward. It affected me greatly because I felt like the state of Massachusetts was also doing exactly what my family did, is not giving me the opportunity to speak the truth. I felt silenced again. So finally, the Massachusetts legislation passed the law, and there was a sense of relief, like, my gosh, it actually can happen. My case went to the Supreme Judicial Court, and they found it constitutional, which gave me an avenue to take it to trial. It was 2 weeks, and it was the most horrific 2 weeks of my life. It was like re-experiencing the trauma all over again. But at the end of the 2 weeks, there was a jury of 14, and they ruled in my favor. So after the trial, I still work very hard to advocate and stand up for other people. I feel like in those settings that I can be sort of not a role model, because I'm getting served too, like I'm getting help, but I'm also providing information for them where they're just beginning. It's helping them in their journey. What I'd like to say, going through the experiences I went through as a victim, my journey of healing, and now getting justice is that I am so grateful for the help I received, for all those wonderful people that were mentors and helped me. I had to put in the work. I can live a more comfortable, happy life and fulfilled life with my partner, with my family, with my nieces and nephews, and just embrace all of that. I could never do that before. I always felt excluded. I always felt less than. I always carried that deep, toxic shame.
This is the Insider Exclusive, live from Boston, Massachusetts. It is my great pleasure to introduce Carmen Durso and John Long to the show. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Carmen, tell us a little bit about your law firm. What type of practice do you do?
Well, for the last 30 years, my practice has been exclusively representing people who have been sexually abused.
And the reason we are here today is on a specific case, which turned out to be a landmark case, basically, in your state. Tell our audience a little bit about your client.
Well, Rosanne Sliney, who was the plaintiff in that case, came to me at the end of 2011 and said to me that she'd been sexually abused as a child by her uncle between the ages of 5 and 13. She asked me whether she could bring a claim, and I explained to her that there was a statute of limitations problem.
And her one response was, what is the statute of limitations?
That's right.
She didn't know.
No, she didn't. And I explained it to her. And I told her that it was a very difficult statute in Massachusetts, very limited. And I told her that a lot of people were working on changing it. And I said, as I said to all my clients at that time and since, if you'd like to do something, you can contact your state representative, your state senator, tell them your story if you feel you can do that. And that's the best way to get laws changed, when the people who are going to make the laws have a personal understanding of what's going on.
Your background is that you worked for the government, correct? And you knew people in the legislature, right?
I worked in the Attorney General's office for 4 years, and I worked in the State Department of Public Health for 4 years. In both of those positions, I would work on legislation, sometimes drafting legislation, sometimes successfully getting some legislation passed.
Okay, now tell us the history of what you did next with Roseanne.
We filed suit for Roseanne. The suit was immediately attacked, not on the facts, but on the statute of limitations. The judge who heard the case was dismissive, and rather quickly entered a decision dismissing the case. We took an appeal. The appeal went up to the intermediate court, the appeals court.
This is back in 2012, I believe.
The appeals court also heard the case and dismissed it.
They were following the law.
They were following the law as it was at that time, yeah.
Then what happened?
In the meantime, what had happened is I had explained to Rosanne Sliney about things you could do, and she took me at my word, and she went out and reached out to public officials. She did press conferences. She was able to do the press conference because she had a written statement by the uncle who had abused her, and indicated in that statement that he admitted some part of it.
Yeah, and his name was what?
His name was Dominic Previte.
Now, in reaching out, this is how you, John, found out about this case, and I admire the fact that you pursued the need for a change, right? Tell our audience a little bit about what you did when you first met Roseanne, and how did you meet her?
So I was newly elected to the House of Representatives, and my district included Waltham, where Roseanne's family was from and where she grew up. And I saw over the news, and it was in the newspaper, of her coming out with her story and dismissed. It was on some social media, and the problem with the statute of limitations being the hurdle for her case to go forward. I, newly elected, did not understand the statute of limitations, not being an attorney, and certainly in the terms of child sexual abuse. So we had a lot of mutual friends. I did not know Roseanne personally, but we had a lot of mutual friends. And when her story broke, I had a lot of people reaching out to me to help her.
Do something about it.
So we connected, and I met her and her sister at a Panera Bread in Waltham for coffee one morning. And she told me her story. And, I told her, listen, I don't know much about this, but I will help you, and I will try to help you. And we went on kind of a mission together to try to change the statute of limitations. And it was, she was someone that was very respected in her community and had a lot of support. And we did get a lot of support, and I went on kind of a mission at the State House to try to navigate the changing of the statute of limitations.
The change, correct me if I'm wrong, was approved by 100% of the legislature, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay, was there any pushback by any group or whatever? Tell us about that.
Yeah, it took 2 or 3 years before we were able to get it to a place to bring it to the floor for a vote. And in the meantime, there was meetings with Chair of Judiciary. That was a very emotional meeting, to say the least. And it involved Senator William Brownsberger, who was a senator in my district as well. We commuted one day to the State House. He's an attorney. His position really wasn't in support of statute of limitations and child sexual abuse. When I explained the case and the challenges, he actually came around and supported it. And then he actually, with me, helped move this forward. And one of the things that we did was the primary blocker for statute of limitations for decades at the State House has been the Catholic Church.
Let me ask you this. You used the words, he finally came around. What were the challenges in convincing anybody for that?
I guess I would say him even being a lawyer was not sure of how he felt about it. And I won't say he finally came around. I think he, after explaining it and talking it through with him, he was very open-minded, and he came kind of full circle and supported it. And he was not against it. So
no, it seems to me almost like a no-brainer. A child is hurt. She can't bring a case because of some law that prevents her from doing this, right? And it's seeing everybody's got kids, right? If it was your kid, and this happened to your kid, you definitely want to change. Did you run into any, let's say, hurdles in getting this approved? And thank God it was 100% approved. And what were those hurdles?
Those hurdles were primarily the Catholic Church in the Archdiocese of Boston.
And this is after the movie Spotlight came out, didn't it? So we all know the Catholic Church was one of the biggest predators out there. How could the Catholic Church try, what's their interest in not changing? Because they wouldn't have to pay money to some of their other victims, right?
Correct. Senator Brownsberger and I sent a letter to the Cardinal Sean O'Malley, and asked to meet with him. He wrote back and agreed to meet with us. We went to his residence. When we got there, expecting to meet with him, it was his attorneys in a conference room. And why we were going there was to explain this isn't just about the Catholic Church. I was there to tell Roseanne's story. And when they said at that point the Cardinal was busy and he would try to maybe meet with us later. At that point, I explained the case to his attorneys who was in the room. And after a bit and explaining Roseanne's case, I said, this is not just about the Catholic Church. And this is a woman that I'm trying to help, and her situation that she had with her abuser. And they did, at then some point, the Cardinal did join the meeting. And he was good. We had to negotiate, obviously, with them to support the bill, which ultimately they did. They had some pushback still. And then I have, at that point, it was a lot, emotionally for me as well. And we passed the law in 2014. And I'm still in the legislature, as is Senator Brownsberger. But I have filed bills this term and to totally eliminate the statute of limitations in child sexual abuse.
How's that going?
I believe we have a lot of momentum now, and I believe that the people that have been against this bill for so long, I don't think they have the influence that they have had over many decades here in Massachusetts.
All right, Carmen, getting back to the case. The case goes up to the Massachusetts Supreme Court, correct?
Well, it did. But what happened in the meantime, before it got to the state Supreme Court for full argument, the law changed. And it became effective on June 26, 2014. So when it now finally got to the court, it came to the court on the question of whether or not the statute was constitutional because it had retroactive provisions. It's interesting, the state of Maine went through this recently, and their state Supreme Court said it was constitutionally impermissible.
Why? Because they said it's like ex post facto?
The U.S. Supreme Court had previously ruled that there was no reason why a state statute could not be made retroactive. And our state constitution was similar to the U.S. Constitution, and we had some good arguments. We got assistance from other places. I serve on the board of the National Crime Victim Bar Association. They wrote an amicus brief. Other people supported it. The state Supreme Court ruled favorably and said the law was constitutional and it applied, and this opened the door for us to have the trial of Roseanne's case. But more importantly, and not really more importantly, because Roseanne's case is equally important, it opened the door for literally thousands of other people who would be able to bring cases.
And they have.
They have. Thanks to Roseanne and thanks to John and Will Brownsberger as well. They've done so much more for people than we ever could have imagined.
Okay, let's talk about what went on in the courtroom, okay? I think you've already mentioned that the uncle wrote a confession, correct? He agreed to pay $26,000, which you tell me he did pay.
It was in stages. Initially, what he agreed to do was to pay for Roseanne's mental health treatments.
Right, therapy.
And at some point, he thought it was getting to be too much, and he stopped. Roseanne, at the trial, I had 5,000 pages of Roseanne's medical records from all the psychiatric treatments that she had to go through through the years. So her bills were enormous, the expenses were enormous. And
she was paying them herself.
Well, she paid for what she could, but at some point she was not able, and there were other means of getting payment. But clearly, she was not getting all the treatment she should have gotten, and she was not getting what the uncle promised to do. At some point, this is before I had met her, obviously, she had another attorney involved to try to get the uncle to pay. And that ended up with a written agreement for the uncle to pay $26,000. Not sure how that figure was arrived at, but that resulted in a written document, a release. The release saying that no claims could be brought against the uncle. That was a huge barrier. So we had two competing documents in this case, one in which The uncle admitted to some, but not all, of the sexual assaults, and a document in which Roseanne had signed while she was in a mental institution, saying that she released him for all claims for the $26,000.
And how did you overcome that, by the way?
I had a very smart young woman lawyer working with me who said, we can get past the earlier payments by virtue of her being mentally incompetent. She had a lawyer with regard to the $26,000 payment, and for that particular part, this young woman, this lawyer, Sarah Burns, said, for that part, we have a defense called economic necessity. And that was a sufficient basis for the jury to find that that agreement was void, that she was forced out of economic necessity to sign that document.
Eventually, you ended up with a verdict of?
We ended up with a verdict of $860,000. We think, but we're not sure, that the jury subtracted what they thought had been paid from $1 million, and that's how they came into that particular number. With the interest on top of the verdict, we ended up with a judgment for $1.6 million at that time.
And it's even more now, isn't it?
Today, it's about 4-point-something million.
Because it was appealed, correct?
Jury verdict was appealed. And during the course of that appeal, which took a while, the uncle died. And what we had to do at that point was substitute the uncle's estate for the uncle and continue it that way. So that it took us a while to get a final judgment from the uncle.
A lot of our audience does not know that when you go up an appeal, interest accumulates on the judgment, correct? So that's how you reach almost $4 million, correct? Which still has not been paid, correct?
Still has not been paid.
I do want to say one thing to you, John. You know, as a lot of people think that people in politics today don't speak truth to power. And in your particular case, you have done so. And I admire that tremendously because, you know, despite whatever you have done in your past, I think you were in real estate before, correct? You are willing to take on the big guys. And it is because of you and the other people in the legislature that Roseanne even has a case. You know, the fact that she gets justice even though she hasn't been paid yet, right? It's still justice. You know, it held somebody accountable, changed the law, opened the doors for so many other people, right, to file their own claims too and successfully win it. So I want to thank you very much for what you have done, and I really appreciate you being on the show. We have with us today Roseanne and her sisters, so let's bring them on right now. It is my great pleasure to introduce Rosanne Sliney, as well as her sister, Gina Mola. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve.
Roseanne, I'm so glad you came on the show. We have done a lot of these sexual abuse cases. It's very rare that someone will volunteer to express, you know, what they went through and that sort of thing. But you have a mission now. As I mentioned before, sometimes we meet our destiny, you know, on the road we sought to avoid it, right? This is your road now. And you are representative of many people. I mean, it's tremendous courage, right? Many people who have been victimized but become an advocate, and that's who you are now. And just because of the passage of the, you know, the new statute of limitations, which allows a lot of new people, a lot of victims to seek justice too, you're still on this mission, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that it is a lifelong mission, and I just feel that when I was able to get the courage to speak and tell my story, it took a long time, but it alleviated that silence that I was holding on to.
Right.
The more people that can tell this story, their own personal story, when they do get the courage, the more people that come forward, the more it becomes, less of a secret and less hidden, and then there's more awareness.
We have a saying, it's called, you're only as sick as your secrets. You keep those secrets in, they'll destroy you. By you, what we call witnessing, by sharing what happened to you, you inspire others to come forward too.
I hope so.
So let me ask you something, Gina. While you guys were growing up, you're a couple years apart, I guess, right? Did you know any of this was going on?
No. We came from a very, very tight-knit family. Spent Sundays together, holidays together, no. There'd be no way to know.
And my question to you is, did you not share this with your sisters? What was going on?
I never had it in the forefront of my mind. I guess I just compartmentalized every event and was able to just adapt to what I needed to adapt to. So I actually had a relationship with my godfather, as did we all. And
this is your uncle?
My mother's brother.
And his name again is what?
Dominic Previte. And he was my godfather. And I just really don't ever remember it. Like it didn't affect me in a way. I think I just put it away somewhere in order to just survive. And then when I was 24, it all came crumbling in.
Why do you think it happened then?
When I was 24, my mother passed away. She had a massive heart attack, and she was not sick. And that trauma of losing her opened a floodgate. So the person that I thought was my godfather and uncle, and who I loved all those years, I came to realization that, oh my God. And all of a sudden I was just flooded with all these repressed memories, and I held on to them without telling anybody for a little bit. And I was having panic attacks, and I started having all these symptoms.
You were teaching at that time, weren't you?
Right. I was. I had my first professional job outside of college. I was a teacher at a junior high school, and I coached high school softball and basketball. And when I got the call that my mom died, again, it was just, it all just flooded me. And I had to come to terms with that. And the first people I told were my sisters.
And Gina, when you first heard your sister say this, what was your thoughts?
It was just a few months after my mother had passed away. So it definitely was shocking. Shocking, but then not so much.
And he never attempted to do the same thing to you or your sister?
We came from a very gatekept family, a family of secrets. They had all kind of started opening up. I think when my mother passed away, she took the key with her. So things started to unravel. So when she came to us, I think probably 6 months later, the summer after, everything just started to make sense. It was just a much bigger picture unfolding. So I want to say, yes, we were shocked, but almost like we were prepared for the blow. And then it was just, what do we do? We're not adults. We're not the adults. Are we the adults?
Who did you tell?
We decided amongst us that we would put all our faith in one of my aunts. It was an aunt that wasn't like a sister.
Family member.
Yes, my mom was the only girl, so there was 3 brothers, and we felt one of them was being accused. We didn't feel safe going to the other two. We thought we should go to this one aunt.
So the big question that the audience is asking right now is, from 5 to 14, did you ever tell your parents?
My uncle was my godfather. And so there was a lot of family businesses that my mom was involved in, my dad, the uncles, my grandmother, some of the aunts. I mean, it was all run by family. So at a young age, he used to pick me up and take me to work. And a lot of the abuse happened there. And then when...
Well, let me ask you something. And I don't know whether you can remember this or not, but it'd be helpful, and I'm very appreciative of the fact that you're here today. A lot of the abuse would take there. You were not old enough, 5, 6, 7, 8. When did most of this happen? A little later, let's say from 10, 11, 12, 13, whatever. You were not conscious of the fact that you were being sexually assaulted. Did it go through your mind that, like, this isn't right, or I don't like this, or did you ever say to your uncle, I don't want this anymore?
Yeah, so he used his power as my godfather to basically groom me. And it started out like just playing games, and I'd be 5 years old and I'd be at his house. And I have one memory that's etched, and this is the memory that brings me to the fact that it actually happened when I was 5. I don't know about before 5, but at 5, I was at his house, and he didn't have kids at the time, and he was probably, I don't know, newly married, I don't know. But I was 5 years old, and I was ice skating in his backyard. He had a tennis court and used to fill it with water. And then I fell, and I broke my leg. So I had a cast, full-length cast at 5 years old. And that's how I remember that day, as now. At the time, I didn't remember.
Okay, so you did not tell your parents?
But the interesting thing, when we told our aunt, and then my uncles, my other 2 uncles came, and my other aunt, when I sat at the table with my siblings and they sat at the table and I said the words.
What were those words?
I said, we need to talk to you. And, Uncle Dom sexually abused me.
And they immediately probably asked, what do you mean?
They all said, we knew.
We knew?
We knew. And how can we help you?
I actually think the first thing my aunt said was, if it happened to my kids, can I swear?
Yeah.
I'll fucking kill him. It was explosive. And we were like...
The big question is, did she help you?
No, it changed really, really fast.
Yeah, so she first said to me, what do you need? And I said, I just want to know what happened. Like, why? Why me?
You're asking this.
I'm saying this to my aunt. I said, I want to talk to him. Because my goal was not to hurt anybody.
Even though you had been hurt.
Right. But I didn't even know the scope of what happened to me until it evolved through my journey later. But I knew it was wrong at that time. And I just wanted to say to him, like, why? And they said, well, do you want us to be with you when you tell him? And I said, no, like, I want to be by myself. I just want to ask him why. And there was a lot of loyalty in that family. And
you said it changed right away. How did it change?
It changed right away because they realized, or they wanted to swallow the fact that it wasn't their kids.
And on top of that, they didn't want anything to happen to the godfather, correct?
Well, so then it became, okay, our girls are safe. So now let's start to protect.
yeah.
Let's insulate this. Then they could all move on. And it would be a loss, but they could continue with this always a sunny day.
Your mother has passed on at this time, correct?
Yeah.
What's your dad doing? How's he reacting?
Oh, it took a while to tell him.
Yeah. He didn't find out.
Well, why did they keep it from him?
So when I confronted my uncle, I walked in and it was silent for like 20 minutes. He's like, what do you need? Do you need any money? Do you need whatever? And I said, it was quiet. And then finally I sat down and he sat down. I said, I want to talk to you about what happened between us sexually. And he just put his head down and he's like, I thought this would never come back to me.
How can it not?
Right. And then he followed up with an apology letter, which was...
I remember looking at his deposition, and he said he was concerned that other people in the family wouldn't like him, or that other people might suffer.
He didn't want my father to know.
That was the number one. He didn't want his mother, my grandmother, to know.
So your father finds out. What's he do?
So my father worked in the businesses. He was Irish, and they were very Italian, proud Italian. In fact, my mother spent years as her adolescence in Italy. And when she came back, she fell in love with somebody that was Irish. So there was always cultural tension. And they actually were very openly hostile to him. And a lot of that anger fueled into our home.
How did you end up coming to Carmen's law firm?
A really, really long road.
It took decades for me to get where I am today. Decades. I mean, to a point where I'm lucky I'm alive.
Did you want to commit suicide?
I've had the thoughts. The type of shame that I carry, like everyone has shame, right? But when you're abused and you carry that toxic shame, it is just so hard to be around people. And
the shame is because you think somehow, some way, it's partly your fault. How'd you get over that?
Baby steps, a lot of treatment. I was very, very fortunate. The people that have come and gone into my life that have taught me lessons and learning and doing the work. Like I had to participate in therapy. I had to. And at first I just kept fighting it. I didn't want to say the words. I didn't want to talk about it. It was like taboo. Like I was breaking the cardinal rule of the family. Like I was not being loyal.
So let's talk about coming here, Carmen, right? You realize you're beyond the statute of limitations as the law was at that time. Carmen suggests that you go out and make this story known. Very few people would do that. Why'd you do it?
Because at that point, I've been through decades of treatment. I've had so many mentors and people that have taught me, and I knew what was right. And I didn't want to stay silent anymore. I mean, I never intended to, my intentions were never to change the bill. I just wanted to tell the truth.
Yeah. You didn't want to stay silent anymore because why?
Because it was important for me to expose the truth, to hopefully have that impact on other survivors so that would help them find the courage. But it doesn't happen overnight. It was like a long time before I had the strength to do what I did. And the timing was perfect because I actually joined forces with John Lawn and in the Enough Abuse campaign, Jetta, who it's a nonprofit in Boston, and I was like, what can we do? To get this more public. And between the three of us, Jetta, John, and I, and actually Catherine Robb, we decided to have an Enough event in Waltham, and it was called Enough for One Night. And being a teacher, I wanted to do a pre-party with children. Mm-hmm. And I invited all the kids in the town, their parents, and it was kind of an educational moment. They all did their handprints and wrote enough and wrote messages and stuff, and the young kids were just coloring. And then I came public to Waltham, all the people I graduated with.
And then people would come up to you and tell their story too.
Oh, at that event, we did an anonymous, have you ever been abused? Not at the kids event, at the adult event. Have you ever been abused, or do you know somebody?
I think meeting Carmen was the first time in the 25 years that all of a sudden there was a glimmer. And she was like, I'm going to meet this. He actually wants to meet. Yeah. He said, we'll meet. And she met with him, and she was like, he actually sounded like really positive. And I think she was shocked that
someone finally believed me.
And then she met him, and he said, well, you'd have to do this. And she was like, can you believe it? He said, like, if I could do this, like it could help people. And I think it was a glimmer of strength, that maybe one fiber of strength that was left in there. Yeah. And from that, it was just, let's do this. Yeah. We can do this. We can change it all. Yeah. And she did.
It was very healing for me to go through this process. And
which is how you feel, right?
That's how I mean, it was very healing. And then, I mean, just the response and people saying it happened to me too, it happened to me too. And I was just like, it's everywhere.
Yeah, so you get to file your case, and we've already gone through what happened with your case, and you eventually end up with a verdict for you. What's your feeling then?
At first, I felt like I got justice. Like, wow, like a jury of 14 ruled in favor of me. Like I finally had a win. Like people believed that he was guilty, and it felt like justice.
Did that help with any relation with your family?
No.
Made it worse?
I was a threat.
How did that affect you?
Well, we've already been multiple years without them, and we realized our lives are a lot happier and better without them. And I have 11 nieces and nephews.
3 daughters, and I say to her all the time, she still to this day will say, I still feel guilty or just so awful that you didn't have the support of family. And I could never thank her enough, because my daughters are free. Yeah. There's no more secrets. There's no more silence. There's no more sunny days because the sun's out. She's changed not everybody's life, but the generational cycle stopped, and my daughters are free. I mean, there's no price tag on that.
Well, you become a hero, and you became a hero to help yourself first, and you've helped so many other people.
And that's the sad part. It took it had to have been 25 years of just trying to help herself before she could help anyone else. And that's a big hole to dig out of.
It is. Well, you've done what a lot of people have been afraid to do. Make their story known, because they still feel guilty. They feel less than, right?
Right. It's those toxic beliefs that you learn, the shame, the guilt.
Well, the reason we're doing the show is, first of all, I'm very proud of you and the job you've done. I've done a number of these stories, and when someone is victimized and they become an advocate, they're really helping other people. Getting back to this saying, sometimes our destiny is chosen by the road, that we did not want to take. And hey, you feel better about yourself. You still have people come up to you today and...
Oh, through the years, I get Facebook messengers from people all over the world.
You have a book coming out soon, don't you?
It's a memoir novel. I've been writing for years, just pieces, and as I healed and I was able to put together things, I just do like little chapters, and I do write.
Good. Well, I want to thank you both for being on the show, and so proud of you, and you too for supporting your sister. Because there's a lot of family members who would say, "Oh, why are you trying to screw up our family?" Right? Guess what? I'm hurt. So proud of all of you guys. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Steve.
in this particular, you spent 30 years, Carmen, helping other victims in sexual abuse cases. What is the very first thing, if somebody has been sexually violated, that they should do?
That's a difficult question because there are so many different circumstances in which people are abused.
Would you say the number one is report it to the police?
Oh, absolutely. But, you know, a lot of people that I'm seeing today are still children. And the children aren't in a position to do that. I will say this, in the past 20 years, things have changed substantially. 20 years ago, I had people I represented who told me they had told their parents what happened to them, and their parents didn't listen to them, didn't believe them, told them they shouldn't say things like that. In some instances, actually physically punished their children for telling them that. Today, I do find that parents, if they hear from a child they've been sexually abused, they believe it, as they should, and they do the right things. Yes, the next thing is go to the police. We also have a state agency that investigates these things, Department of Children and Families, DCF.
You're currently reviewing and handling a lot of school abuse cases, correct, for children?
School abuse cases, let me say this differently. People who are interested in sexually abusing victims go to the places where they're going to find people they could potentially assault. Schools present the largest numbers of potential victims and a constant turnover of those victims. And I believe that's why we're seeing so much of sexual abuse in education. There's sexual abuse everywhere. Sure. Hospitals, children's service organizations of various kinds, you name it. But schools are the one place that you have more than one class of children that you see in a day. You see a different group of children the next year, sometimes the next semester. And the people who want to abuse are on the lookout all the time for vulnerable children.
Yeah, the reason I ask that is because, you know, when a child comes home and tells their parents what happened, right? Abused by other children too, correct? There's a thing I'm sure you have in their state, mandated reporting, correct? School officials are mandated to report any incidents. Are they doing that?
No.
And what is the penalty for not doing it?
Supposed to go to jail.
Mm-hmm. But
then they're not. There's a fine and there's a jail sentence. No, as a matter of fact, I see just the opposite. I have cases right now in which teachers who see something have done things like mock the child. I have one case in which a teacher was giving over attention to a student that he, in fact, was abusing. Other teachers would refer to the situation as your boyfriend wants to talk to you, things like that. I've seen situations in which teachers will go to a person who seems to have a relationship with a student and say, hey, you want to watch out, you could get in a lot of trouble doing that. They do everything except make the report they're required to make. And a lot of them say, well, you know, I wasn't sure, I couldn't be sure. The law is very clear. It's not whether you're sure. When you've seen something, you must say something. It's up to someone else to make the decision whether something bad happened.
Okay. Thank you both for being on the show. And again, my admiration for what you have done. You don't find too many politicians like you. And exactly for you too, because, you know, this is a lifelong thing. You know, people don't change. They're fallible, aren't they? So thank you both for being on the show.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.